All things that are going to be undeniably valuable, and I like to cover as many of them as we can. But before we dive into all of that, Rabbi Jack and I were speaking about making this as interactive as practical. So, as we move along, if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, feel free to fire away. You can ask me anything, remotely relevant, and But before we begin, is there anything that you have in your mind that you're saying, wow, I really hope he covers. If he doesn't, I'm going to ask him afterwards. But if he's walking out, then I'm going to be blah, blah, blah. Anything like you're thinking like, I really hope he gets to, and this way we'll get to it. Yeah? I've got my pen, and we can take your questions.
What about attachment theory?
Who said that? Are you a psychologist or social worker? I can spot you people. Okay, I know what attachment theory is, but would you mind, could you elaborate on what you mean by attachment theory for...
Like the different types of attachments. I think there's 4 styles, and then how those different styles can affect an interpersonal relationship and how to maybe,
navigate that. Okay, it's a very sharp, smart question. Okay, good. Yes, please.
How to handle being independent while not becoming codependent with your partner?
Great question also. Okay, what else we got? Yes, please.
How to handle a situation where you find someone that fits all the features or whatever it is, the characters that you're looking for.
Right.
Your family or your parents telling you, hey, get someone like that, or get someone like that.
I love that. Okay. Okay. You know what? Okay, what other questions? Yes, please.
Making sense of divorce.
Pardon me? No, I really didn't hear you. I was...
How many making sense of divorce and dealing with that, like if that was part of your upbringing, how do you go out and date and be successful if you kind of grew up in that environment?
Okay. Wow, okay. Give me a second. Let me... What kind of insurance do you have?
I got my card in my wallet.
No out of network. Okay. Great question. Okay, what else, please? Yes, please.
Sexual assault and harassment and
Oh, good. A nice, easy one. Say that. I'm sorry. Sexual. Where are you? Sexual assault and harassment, meaning what?
not respecting women's.
Oh, like you're dating somebody who has a poor sense of boundaries and is overly aggressive. Amazingly sharp question. I mean, I would say hit low and hit hard, but I'll give more detailed advice.
Can I get that in writing so it's okay to do that?
Yeah, along with the, I got news for you, boy. Yeah, 100. Yes, please.
My roommate was reading your book, Never Be Lied to Again, and I'm interested in it, and you can talk a little bit about it.
I love you. Thank you. The only problem is I can't read my handwriting. So I'm writing stuff down, but if you saw it, you'd be like, alrighty, he's jotting it down. I do want to remember it. I think the act of writing it down will help, even though I can't actually read it. But I'll remember that. Okay. Yes, please. Wow, a lot of questions. Yeah.
Attracting your soulmate, how to do that, and how to take attention with what you want.
I will tell you, by the way, people say that you can't get everything that you want. I want to tell you, my wife is the exception. She got everything she wanted. Big talker when she's on the other coast, Okay.
How many times have you told that joke? It's good. It's good.
Do you know how many jokes right now are going through my head to go ahead and to respond to that? But I won't, because...
Please throw them at me.
No, you say that, but...
You don't have insurance.
Your insurance. Most of us face a nickname.
Yes, please. But okay, I'm not okay. Yeah.
Thinking you're ready for dating, but you're really not, so choosing the right window and timing. First starting your date. Like if you think, I should go date now, but actually it's not the right time.
Meaning not the right time, like time, or like not the right time in your life, or what do you mean by the time?
In your life, like actually knowing like when the time frame, like the time period for yourself is
Right. So I'll tell you like this. Let me just do in that. That's an easy one. If you wait until you are perfectly ready to get married, if anyone did, no one would ever get married. Right? And we're all a work in progress. I mean, you, not me, I'm good. But we're all a work in progress. And you know what? And our marriage partner, our spouse, will help to not only define us, but to allow us to grow. So we will never be complete. We will never be whole. We will never be, certainly you want to have a degree of emotional solvency. You want to be somebody who is, has a sense of self. But please don't think that you've got to get all your ducks in a row, because you know what it's like? Imagine if you're taking a trip from here to Florida and you were just waiting for all the green lights to just turn, all lights to turn green, and then you pull out of your driveway. Obviously, it would never happen, right? When you've got to pull out of your driveway, and then you go to the first light, and even if it's a red light, you got to wait, and then you go, and so on. Meaning that all the stars are never going to line up. You will never be perfectly financially, emotionally, physically, spiritually, everything together. It just doesn't happen. The reason is that God wants us to complete ourselves with our spouse. So I just encourage you to recognize that there will never be a perfect time. You just want to make sure that it's a okay time, or it's not a time when you just have, you're too overwhelmed with stuff and you can't pay proper attention to dating. Yeah, but I think most people have the bar very, very high in terms of what they feel that they need in order to be dating or to get married, when really it should be adjusted. Okay, yes, please.
So on top of that, can you also speak a little bit to at what point you should have clarity that the person is the right match for you?
Okay, so again, and these are sort of self-contained one. Here's the things to look for in general. You want to ask yourself some questions. These aren't my questions. These are things I've heard. One person from Lori Palatnik who sort of distilled it. I don't remember where everything came and from whom, so I'm just giving you that introduction. So it's not mine, but I love it very much, so I'll give it over. What you want to ask yourself is this. If this person never, 3 questions. If this person never changed, would I still want to marry them? Don't go into a relationship, a marriage, expecting to change the person. We're all wired to grow and to progress and to change, but that shouldn't be the expectation. 2 is, would you want your children to be like this person? Yeah? And 3 is, do you respect him or her? Right? In other words, we all have our struggles, and sometimes we marry somebody, or we want to marry somebody, and it's like they've gone through something in particular, and one person can look at it like, you know what, he's dealing with this issue, dealing with this struggle. Someone else would say, my gosh, what an extraordinary person. He's who he is in spite of this. And he's been able to rise above it. And they look at this person in awe and admiration and that's the kind of person, that is how you want someone to see you as well and to appreciate your struggles. Not like, okay, great girl if it weren't for blah, blah, blah. But rather, she's great, not in spite of that, but because of that. Right? This is who helped shape her. So you want to be able to respect somebody for who they are and their struggles to what got them where they are. Yeah, and finally, some might add, do you want to make this person happy? Is this somebody who you would, enjoy investing in the relationship? So those are some basic questions. Before you even get to that, again, you want to make sure that, I speak with a lot of couples, unfortunately, whose marriages are not so great, and it's interesting where the foundation always seems to come back to, and that's conflicting values. Not always, but oftentimes. In other words, if one person fundamentally wants this side of life and the other person wants this, every argument, right, is going to just stem from that same chasm of values. Whereas if you're both on the same value page, you both have pretty much the same beliefs and attitudes and recognize what's important, then everything is just a matter of degrees, right? And you're looking for ways to compromise because you're on the same page in the same book. But some people are just on, so if you have one value system and somebody believes these things are not important, that's going to be something that, can potentially create a fundamental rift. Okay? Great. Okay, yes, please.
So another question is, how do you get out of your own way? So a lot of times, when someone asks you for coffee or a date, and you just stop talking to them, you foreshadow the date before it even happens. How do you do it in a positive way?
Right.
And be open and get out of your own way, honestly.
Right. So I want to be clear about the question. It's what you're saying is that someone will ask you out, but you're projecting what's going to be, what the issues are going to be. You pretty much you do that, and you probably do that in all areas of your life. Yeah, not just on dates. No, you pretty much predict what's going to be. No, I'm asking the question. It's not just with dating. And what, is that scenario ever work out positive, or always works out negatively? No. There's positives, and that's the dates that you would go out on.
Yeah.
So what makes you think that why assume that it's not just your intuition that's saying that, you know what, I'm going to go out, but I know this kind of guy, he's going to be this and this and that. I mean, we all have a filter, which is legitimate. We don't want to, project it irrationally and have our fears get in the way. This is why I asked the question about whether you do this with all scenarios. But it's perfectly legitimate to say, you know what, I know this type of guy, or I know this and that. We're going to go out, he's going to get this or do this, and you may or may not be right. But if you're more right than wrong, then is you saying that's still a problem?
I guess like you match with all these people, right, on like apps and stuff, and like you don't really commit to speaking to them, right? Like there's like a million people, so like you're not fully committed to the dating process, right? And you're not in it.
If you've got a million people, yeah, that's going to be tough to commit to each person. Yeah.
So how do you like deal with like being committed and like seeing in a positive way, right? Like dating in a positive,
Oh, okay. So that's good, and then we'll go ahead and then we'll dive into some of the questions. But we'll use this as a launching pad. It's a great question because the mindset. So I'll make sure. I'm sorry. So you're talking about committing to dating.
Dating, yeah.
Yeah. So listen to this research. Fascinating. It's from a psychologist by the name of Barry Schwartz, and he explains that when there are too many options available, not only does it take longer to make a decision, which is common sense, right? But listen to what the research shows, that whatever decision we do make, we'll end up more likely regretting it if there were more options on the table. Yeah, you've heard that, right? Meaning, for example, you walk into an ice cream store and there's 50 billion flavors. In my day, it was vanilla, chocolate, strawberry. It was easy. If you went into a store and there were three options, vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, and you sat down with your vanilla, research shows, psychologically speaking, you would enjoy that vanilla more than if you went into a store with 50 flavors and still ordered vanilla. Now again, ordering vanilla is going to take you long with all those choices. But the research shows is that the more options available, the less satisfied we're going to be with our ultimate choice. Which is why when I live in New Jersey, and when I work with people in dating, and I work with them in different circles, some orthodox, some not, and limiting the pool is so important because we think, it's intuitive to us, or at least, seemingly logical. If I expand the pool, I put more people in it, then my chances of getting someone I really like is going to be enhanced. But it doesn't work out that way. The evidence is that we end up dating, comparing this person to that person, that person. If you go back to the old days, it was very simple. You married the guy or the girl who, lived down.
Who was set up for you.
Who was set up for you.
Dating is like a relatively new phenomenon in the human experience. It's pretty interesting when you think about it, because for most of history, marriages were arranged.
Okay. Yeah, actually, you know what the research shows, by the way? Remind me of your name again?
Omli.
I'm sorry?
Omli.
That's a great name. I was just on what Omli said. It's an interesting study. Is that about arranged marriages? You would think that arranged marriages would have a lower satisfaction rate. Listen to this. The research shows that an arranged marriage, after the first, I think it's 2.5 years, something like that, of the adjustment period, the marriages have the same satisfaction rate of any other marriage. Isn't that interesting? So in other words, and actually Rabbi Noach Weinberg, blessed memory, who's the dean and founder of Vesha Torah, used to say just about anyone can marry somebody else. Like he should say, like 80% of people can marry the other 80%. There's some people that need, I know you're all thinking you're the exception, but they need somebody more nuanced. But most people can really make it work with anyone. And to your point, is that an arranged marriage, again, once you're over that readjustment period, but again, just in terms about the mindset, when you expand the pool and it goes out too far, it becomes an impossible journey because you can't, you're right, you're going out with one guy and you're thinking about the guy from, 4 whatever things ago, and you think, you know what, if I could just have his looks, this guy's money, his car, this, and that, like Mr. Potato Head, and you put this guy together, right? But here's the thing, this guy doesn't exist. This girl doesn't, well, I guess, you could do anything today with surgery, but, these people don't exist. It's just, they don't. So you're comparing it to something that is just not realistic. So again, it's counterintuitive, but by limiting the pool, and I would tell you, most people get married when they decide to get married. They say, I'm fully committed to getting married. And then, you know what? It talks about, somebody asked about, attracting your soulmate and so on. This is, I'm grounded in hard science, but it is immutable and so fascinating what the research shows us, really what the rabbis told us thousands of years ago in terms of the law, what's commonly called the law of attraction, and about getting more of what it is that you're looking for and what you want, what you're focused on. Let me explain like this. There's something in, actually I think I talked about this at the gala, something in the brain called the reticular activating system, RAS for short. Reticular activating system is located right here in the brainstem. Its job is to filter out unnecessary stimulation, meaning that you're only going to focus in on what is necessary, which is why you can have a conversation with somebody like maybe here and you realize there's a more interesting conversation happening like 10 feet away and you mute the person in front of you and you pick up that conversation. Ladies, you know what I'm talking about, right? So. Or you're having a conversation with somebody and you hear someone call your name. And it's like, wow, right? Because we're tuned into that. So when you are looking for what it is that you want, and that is what's on your radar, rather than what you don't want, you are going to be attracted to that, and you will be more inclined to find that. It's just, the science is there. It's just fascinating. So again, people have a scarcity mentality, and they come into it sometimes, unfortunately, negative. But if you look for what it is that you do want, and you look for the positive, and mind experience of the positive, you're simply going to see it. Okay. All right. Let me go ahead and just dive into some of these questions here. We'll start with this very, very good question. I'll remind you of what she said. I could get it wrong. Something about your roommate was reading a brilliant book. I may have threw that adjective in there. She's talking about a roommate reading one of my books. But I don't recommend all my books. So I don't recommend that one. And I could say that with authenticity. I've written 13. But the only couple I would recommend are as follows. Book came out 2 weeks ago. It's better than Never Be Lied to Again. It's called Mind Reader. It's about how to understand what someone's thinking and feeling, but more importantly, it shows you how to gauge somebody's emotional health in 5 minutes. I mean, imagine going on a date and knowing whether somebody is like, going to go It's very sophisticated. So I don't she's reading the book. She shouldn't return it, certainly, unless you got it at the library. But Mind Reader is another book, again, whatever strikes your fancy here, a book called Never Get Angry Again, if you have any anger issues. And it's a nice Jewish book called Real Power. So those are the 3 I recommend. The others you could skip. First one, Mind Reader. Second one, Never Get Angry Again. It's a nice book, by the way, Never Get Angry Again. Again, some of them I wrote just, it's being recorded. They're all amazing. No, there, of course, there's some other good titles. Edit. Okay. So basically, what these books show is, again, it's how to read people. A lot of the work I do is with law enforcement. I do tactics of interview and interrogation. So whether you're talking to a serial killer or, fifth date, or it's the same person, human nature is human nature. It's pretty much the same. Now I'm going to try and read my handwriting.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes, of course.
To what extent do you believe in the law of attraction? How is it true to you, if true?
Right. So You're talking about the popularized law of attraction?
I'm at, however you relate it
Right.
to yourself and your studies and what you've learned.
That's okay. Fair question. I believe that people attract to them what it is that they are focused on, which is why a person that's focused on their fears, when it comes to, in Hebrew, betachan, meaning trust in Hashem, the opposite of that, of course, is fears, anxieties, and worries. And this is something that the rabbis teach us, and something that the research shows. When a person is focused on the positivity, they improve the outcome. This is not just true in life experience, but also with physical health and physiology. In other words, our emotions affect us in a very, very real, tangible way. And there are a myriad of studies that show that a person who believes in the worst outcome, let's say in terms of a physical, in terms of a prognosis of physical health, believes that something bad is going to happen. There's one case, I wish I could remember the specifics. It was so eerie, you could Google and find in 2 seconds. There was someone who was told that he had I forgot what it was, a certain illness. I think it was a certain type of cancer, and he had about 2 weeks to live. And he died on the day that the doctor told him he would die. Listen to this. He got the wrong call. He never even had the cancer. Yeah, just to show you the power. And this is, yeah, I know, it's fine. It's just why I can't remember, but you can Google it in 2 seconds. And that's not the first, that's not the only time these things like happen. But in the power of the mind is extraordinary in terms of how we create and manifest realities, which is why being positive is so valuable. Let me just take a step back and spend a few minutes on this. I'm going to share with you what I believe is the most effective way to magnetize a date, to come across. We talk a lot about charisma, right? What's charisma? Charisma, right, someone who's charismatic, is not somebody who's confident. There are people who are confident, they're full of themselves. You want nothing to do with this guy or this girl because they're a turnoff. Real charisma emanates from the person and helps us to feel good about who we are. Right? When a person is ego-oriented, when they're egocentric, when everything's about them, they are not charismatic. They may be confident, but they're not charismatic. A charismatic person helps us to feel good about ourselves. And I want to share with you what I think, and I've been doing this for 20 some odd years. I've written a number of books. I speak all over about this. One of the most powerful ways of connecting with somebody and literally coming across as more attractive. And that is smiling, being joyful. It is, if you look at the research time and again, think about this. Now, not like a joke or creepy smile, like, you know, Sling Blade.
Like my smile?
You do have nice teeth.
I'll buy it. What kind of?
My man Sherwin, he's got the smile. Look at his smile and then duplicate that. There you go. The good-looking guy in the back.
There's lots of them.
There are lots of that. But again, because what happens when somebody smiles at you, first off, you can't help but do what? Smile back. It just makes us feel good. You ever meet somebody, by the way, and they're sort of like attractive, but they've got this 50,000 watt smile, and you're like, oh wow, this is I want to. And then you meet somebody who you believe is attractive, and they're like, You're like, oh gosh, you can't wait to get away. Psychologically, just so you know, people who smile are viewed as more attractive. Right? Just interesting. Again, you know, they've done a number of studies like this, but one is just to simply take pictures or videos of people smiling, not smiling. And objectively speaking, people who smile are just deemed as that much more attractive. Plus you come across more charismatic because when you smile, you instantly, there are two things a person does when they're nervous. Or excuse me, that they don't do. They don't smile, they don't breathe. I don't mean breathe at all, but they don't breathe deeply, which is why before an actor goes on stage or before somebody has to deliver a speech and so on, very often you're going to find them taking deep breaths because physiologically it relaxes the central nervous system, and also smiling. Again, a full smile that encompasses the face. So when we do that, it instantly relaxes us and helps the other person to feel more relaxed as well. When you go on a date, and you're nervous. You're only nervous because you're self-conscious. So one of the things that I teach, and I teach public speaking, is that if you want to speak to an audience and not be nervous, you want to go on a date and not be nervous, all you have to do is take the attention away from yourself and put it on the other person. Meaning you're only self-conscious because you're conscious of the self. I mean, that's semantics, right? So in other words, you ever have a conversation with somebody and it's like, they maybe have something like weird going on, you just don't know where to look. Or you get up to speak and like your arm, you're like, what do I do with these guys? It's like you knew what to do with them when you weren't self-conscious, but when you become hyper-aware of the self, you become too self-conscious. Here's a great technique on a date to just help it to be more flowing, to build rapport, and that is your only job on the date is to help that other person to feel great about themselves. I'm telling you, it's amazing, because here's what happens. If both people go on the date and they're both worried about making a good impression, right, then you leave the date and you're sort of like questioning how did it go and so on, how'd you come across. But if your sole focus is on helping this person to feel good, putting this person at ease, making them feel great, you will come across amazing. And then you can think to yourself afterwards whether or not. But there are fewer ways to make a good first impression than by trying to put the other person at ease. I mean, you hear the logic of this, because what happens is when you go on a date with somebody and you really like the person, what happens to your personality? Right, goes out the window. You either shut up and or you don't shut up, you can't stop talking, or you got nothing to say. Which is why if we did all the things on the dates with the people that we like as we do with the people we don't like, we would have been married 100 times over. You go on a date with someone you don't like, you're amazing. Right? Conversation's flowing, you're funny, you're witty, you're just engaging, you're fluid, it's going great. You're like, too bad, the person's a loser. Then you go out with someone you really like, you're like, The reason is because you're focused on yourself. Shift your focus to the other person and your personality, which is, by the way, I encourage people, no matter how rotten the date is, give them another chance, because the odds are that they just really, really like you. Think about this. The fact that their personality, or you didn't click with the chemistry, whatever name we want to give to it, is oftentimes because they were just really, thought you were amazing and they couldn't be themselves. So, which is why you want to give a person another date or 2 or 3 to get more comfortable. And you yourself, if you go on the first date and you just focus on the person, you'll already have that degree of comfort wired in. Make sense? Okay, great. All right, any other questions on that before we move forward?
What do you think about people pleasing? What does that term make you think of?
People pleasing. Right. So in broad strokes, it's like this. Another very good question. There are 3 different personality types. They're different models, but they're different personality types. You have high self-esteem and a small ego. That's the emotionally healthy person, right? That's me. Then you have people with low self-esteem and an inflated ego. That's the loud, obnoxious, arrogant guy. They couldn't make it here. Then you have the low self-esteem and a dented ego. That is what our good friend refers to as a people pleaser, the perpetual doormat. The person that doesn't give because they want to do what's right, rather they allow themselves to be robbed to assuage feelings of guilt, inadequacy, shame. They don't feel like they can stand up to themselves. Let me just say this for people pleasers out there. If somebody asks something of you and you can't say no, then you can't say yes. Meaning, if you don't think you can really legitimately say no, then you're not really saying yes. You're not giving. You're allowing yourself to be robbed with consent. Right? You walk in a bad neighborhood, someone says, "Can I have your watch?" Are they really asking you a question? Right? No. You don't feel like you can say, "No, you know what? I really like this one. Why don't you get a job and get your own?" Right? It's, if you're smart, you give the person your watch. So people pleasers have a hard time saying no. Ultimately, I just flesh out the psychology, if you suffer with that, is that we're wired for connection. We're all wired to connect with one another. But if I don't love me so much, and we all suffer low self-esteem to some degree, right? I'm worried that you are going to reject me. You're not going to want to connect with me. So I am going to come into your space and I am going to give and give and give in order that you should not tell me that we have to disconnect. So I'm going to become a people pleaser out of fear that you are going to reject me, which is the kind of person you say, I need a kidney. They go, here you go. I need another one. Here you go. I need another one. I'll go get you one, right? So if you're a people pleaser, just be mindful again. If it's important to set boundaries. It's a long conversation, certainly, but it's something to pay attention to. Did I answer your question okay?
It did. It's
Because
really
I want to please you.
Well, now you put me on the spot. I can't be good.
I'm sorry, I put you on the spot. I'm sorry.
Not good enough for you.
I put you on the very good. I'm sorry, what was that?
Just kidding. Anyway, Monica has a question.
You're great. I'm taking you everywhere. Let me just flesh out the psychology so we'll understand where this fits in. There's self-esteem and confidence are different. Self-esteem refers to the degree to which a person loves themselves and feels worthy of good things in life. That is what it means to have self-esteem. A person can be confident, right, in a certain area. A person can be confident because they're attractive, confident because they have money, confident because they are successful or they're a good tennis player, or they're a skilled physician, whatever it is. That doesn't mean that they like themselves. So a person with low self-esteem and high confidence will de facto produce an arrogant mentality because their entire self-image, their identity is wrapped up in this one pocket area. So they're going to use that as their calling card, their facade, in order to help buttress their own feelings of insecurity. When a person has real high self-esteem, that is a person who has humility. It's often, we get this confused a lot. We think a humble person doesn't like themselves. The contrary, real humility is recognizing your strengths. Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, was the most humble of men. He was also the greatest prophet. He talked to God. He knew his strengths. He was the leader of the Jewish people, and he was the humblest. It wasn't arrogance. Compare it, anyone that knows the Torah knows someone like Bilam or Korach. They were rich with arrogance. Yeah, they didn't have real self-esteem. They didn't have self-love. So what happens is a person with low self-esteem is going to it's going to produce an arrogant mentality. I mean, the different personality types. It could also produce that egocentricity that's more passive, but the world still revolves around this person's pain. They're just not going to manifest the same degree of arrogance. But the thing is this, when a guy goes on a date with you, he's wants to project a good image, and sometimes we mess it up, right? We think that being confident and full of bravado and coming across as all collected and with it is attractive. And it's not. It's right. I mean, you know it's not, but some guys and some women don't necessarily get that. It's a turnoff. A person who has low self-esteem is going to have a big ego and they're going to be arrogant. Real humility is a person who's able to give. If I'm arrogant, I can only take. We know humility. It's somebody who can make the other person feel good, focus on the other person's needs. They can be empathetic. They can validate. Arrogant person, it's about me, 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 me. Yeah? That's how, by the way, how a narcissistic opera singer warms up. Me, 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 me. Ah.
So you don't give an arrogant person a
So I was going to say it like this. I'm sorry. There's a long way of saying is that he may not be arrogant. He may just think that this is the way to sort of, come across as attractive. So unless, he's like really like out there, I'm inclined to give most people a second date. Yeah, I am, because he may not really be arrogant. He may think that this is what makes him more attractive, right? Because he's just sort of putting on a show, putting on a facade, but it fosters disconnection, not connection.
But if the person's like that on the second date, you're good at calling that.
Let me ask you this question. Yeah. So, what signs are you looking at to label this person as arrogant? Just to make sure we're on the same page.
They're like just talking about themselves. They're just trying to like kind of be someone.
Wait, in Los Angeles, really? Who would have thunk? Yeah. Okay. So self-absorbed. But again, there's something called self-enhancement behavior, meaning that when you want to impress somebody, very often we tell them how amazing we are, right? In other words, the only way for you to be impressed, what we don't really realize is the way to get someone to like us is to help them to feel great about themselves, asking questions. That's fascinating. It's so interesting. Wow, you really like somebody who's interested in you. So he may just be, again, he may be arrogant, may be completely self-absorbed. What I would do is ask here's what you do in order to make sure that it's not just something he's doing because he thinks it's a good idea. When you talk about yourself, about something that's important and valuable to you, and there are people who will do this, it's mesmerizing. This is real arrogance and self-absorption. He will just truncate anything you have to say and flip the conversation back to him 2 seconds consistently. That's somebody who, at the very least, has such poor social awareness. It may be good for a friend, but not for you. Okay? Because he's not aware that this is not something that is, is socially appropriate to go ahead. And it's amazing. You have a conversation with somebody. I'm sorry?
You could tell them.
Tell them what?
What? You could tell them that
You
don't like that they keep redirecting the conversation. You could be like, hey, dude, I don't like this.
You could.
It might
But
be a good form of self-service.
right, yeah, it would. But here's the thing: this person is going to have a hard time hearing that because he has to be perfect. So he's not going to hear criticism of any sort, let alone from someone he wants to impress. It's not going to go well. Every time someone's told it to me, I've not reacted well. I can just tell you that. No, it doesn't. I'm sorry? Okay, no.
Wait, but what if you have a buddy like that and you want to help him out?
Yeah, very good. Good. There's a saying, people don't care what you know till they know you care. If you have a friend, one of these guys who's just like, he just doesn't realize he's just always talking about himself, by all means, if you really care about the person, you want to do an act of kindness. So, we have an obligation, by the way, excuse me, to give people rebuke. But there's a commentator, a great Torah sage by the name of the Rambam, who says we have an equal obligation not to give someone rebuke if they know they're not going to take it. But if you think that somebody's going to hear what you have to say and you say it in a loving way, by all means. I mean, we all want to grow. We all want to be better. And if you know of somebody you've got a good relationship with, they really care about you, you'd hear it from them. But if you don't have the relationship, I always tell people, it's not about what you say, it's the relationship you have. If you don't have a relationship, you can't say pass the salt without the person thinking, what's your ulterior motive? Right? But if you have the right relationship, then you can say, Lord, you're amazing, you're so sweet, you have so much. I just want to express how I feel. When I talk about my problems and 2 seconds later we're talking about yours, it just, makes me hard to feel connected. And, they might very well appreciate that. So you raised a nice point. Thank you. Okay, yes, please.
2 questions. Could you define self-esteem one more time? And then also, back to the boundaries question.
Sure. Good. So 1, self-esteem refers to the degree to which a person loves themselves and feels worthy of good things in life. I am valuable of connection. So I talk about this. Okay, you can just Google it and find that also. But in Never Get Angry Again and in Mind Reader. And in boundaries like this, here's the thing. Boundaries are not meant to keep people out. Boundaries are meant to define our personal sense of responsibility and obligation. Every relationship needs boundaries. The healthiest relationship needs boundaries. Certainly people who are unwell need boundaries. Now here's the thing, when you're dealing with people who are emotionally unwell, they have lousy boundaries. You know this because if I don't have a clear sense of me, I've got a poor sense of we. That means I'm going to come into your space in an unhealthy way, and I'm going to let you into my space in an unhealthy way. So it is incumbent upon the healthier person in a relationship to draw the boundary line. Now, here's how boundaries work. If you have a hard time setting them, it's because you are, as our good friend pointed out, maybe a people pleaser. Somebody who, when you draw that boundary and somebody pushes against it, you're fearful that they're going to say goodbye. So you will accept something that you shouldn't accept. You will tolerate what you should not tolerate. You will allow what you should not allow. And when you do that, it injures your own self-respect. There are fewer ways to galvanize your feelings of self-worth and self-esteem than by drawing a boundary line with somebody who's not healthy and holding firm. Now, it will be so uncomfortable because the job of this person is to push. That's their job. That's in their job description, right? Whatever it is, this person will want to push. Our job is to hold the line and stay firm. And it will be uncomfortable because it's the unpredictability of it that drives us nuts. If we give in and do what they want, we know where we stand. But what are they thinking? What are they going to do? Are they going to say this? Are they going to do that? And so on. That's when we end up giving in. Now, when you draw boundary lines, a couple of rules. It doesn't have to be done mean. It doesn't have to be done viciously. It doesn't have to be done personally. Meaning, let's say you want to take a real life example. If you want to give me one, I'll take yours. Otherwise, I'll just give you a generic one. It can be about you or about a friend, whatever it is.
What about one where like a person is just like giving like false promises? Like their strategy for which is like trying to like say like they'll make promises that like that the fears are not real, but like they're not genuine.
Got it. Are they making? Sorry, I want to make sure everyone heard that this person is making false promises in order to attract you and to garner your interest. Is that?
To lower the boundaries.
To lower the boundaries. So in other words, if they're promising you something, if you do something, yeah. Okay, fine. There are other names for that. But and so this person is essentially lying, yeah.
Manipulating.
Yeah, right. They're being manipulative. Right. So here's the thing. You ever watch, these commercials or read about investments, and they say, past performance is not indicative of future results. Okay. By relationships, past performance is exactly indicative of future results. So, as my mother used to say, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I guess everyone's mother said that, but.
George Bush couldn't get that right.
Oh, he said it. Yeah.
He tried to.
Oh, and he messed it up. Really?
You never saw that?
No.
Okay, no. I'll show you after.
All right. Which one? Junior or senior?
Junior.
Okay. He's great. Blah, 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 blah. Right. So to your question, you know what? Look, here's the thing. When it comes to believing people that make us promises, the reason why we believe it, listen to this, by the way. There's a whole thing on con artists and about why few people fall prey to them. And that is that it has nothing to do with intelligence, just so you know. It has zero to do with that. It has to do with the susceptibility, has to do with where we are at that moment in time. Meaning, if you have somebody who's emotionally afraid, if they're vulnerable, they can be smart, they could be savvy, they could be everything, but we believe what we want to believe. So if you're in that space, the con artist is a master of manipulation, of moving in that space. And yes, holding out false promises is something that they do. So I would say like this, that if you have a person who has a pattern of breaking their promises, expect that you can't believe whatever it is that they say. Yeah? Okay? Okay. Did I answer your question okay? Okay, great. Yes, please.
What about people who send mixed messages?
It's a great question. Not so much, actually. You get it?
Yeah. Loud and clear.
You got it? Okay. Savvy crowd. Thought it might have been too subtle. What do you mean by mixed? What do you mean by mixed messages?
Like, kind of on the topic of boundaries. Like, you set the boundaries, and you know, like, what you're
Right.
looking for.
Yeah.
Whatever. And then someone might come along that respects the boundaries.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like, shows more interest and then pulls back and then it surfaces.
Yeah. No. It's manipulative. As I was saying, a person who respects boundaries doesn't violate them and say, "Oops." A person that respects boundaries goes to that line, and then again they don't step over it because as a boundary line. So I don't think it's a mixed message as much as it is. Again, I don't know the person, but I might think it would be much more. It is manipulative and self-serving. And it's the mixed. It's not a mixed message. The person has one message, and it's just
disguising the message, basically.
Okay, they're disguising the message, basically. Yeah, I'm not articulating it well. Maybe he's doing a better job. You know what?
With pleasure.
Yeah. But again, mixed, unclear messages. I don't believe genuinely that person often acts with authenticity. Right, I think it's more of game playing. I mean, I could be wrong, but it's my, yes, please.
Okay, so I just moved here a month ago, and like.
Where'd you move from?
I'm New York. So I just I'm very self-aware, and I've noticed a lot of these singles events, right? You're paying a lot of money, you're going to all these events, and everyone's just talking to their own friends, right? So how should you navigate singles events, like from your perspective? Because it's you go up to somebody, like how do you deal with that? Because I think people are just so fearful of rejection. that
Right.
They're so scared to even ask someone out or
Yeah.
even to a new person.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
How do you deal with that?
That's great. Here's the thing, by the way, it's a beautiful question. Let's make sure everyone heard the question, is how do you just navigate singles events? So number one is this. The degree to which you don't take things personally, you will be better off in life and single events because it's got nothing to do with you. If somebody, quote unquote, we reject things all the time, so because we can't afford them. So if somebody's rejecting you, it's because that's a bad example. A person's ability to be able to connect with you is about their ability to be able to connect with you. We treat other people based on how we feel about ourselves, right? You give love, you give respect. So, I mean, just understand this, is that how someone treats you is a reflection of their own self-worth, their own self-esteem, their own character, right? Let me just give you an example. Let's say that you're in an amazingly great, super duper mood. How are you treating the world around you? Great. Now let's say that you're just in one of those awful, lousy states, one out of every billion years, just a lousy state, and just nothing's going well. How are you treating the people around you, even those that really don't deserve it?
I don't treat them anything.
What's that? Not so well? Not so well. Well, we're going to get to you in a second. Right. Now, did the self-worth of those people change? Did they become less valuable as human beings? Did their intrinsic worth, right? Of course not. But our capacity, your capacity to give was limited, right? Because of you. So when somebody cannot treat you respectfully, somebody cannot be nice and be pleasant, recognize it's them, it's not you. It has nothing to do with you. It's their capacity. They are simply limited. But I would tell you one of the most fabulous techniques for engaging anyone in any conversation is imagine somebody has written on their forehead, make me feel significant. That's it. When you talk to anyone, everyone wants to feel important, valuable. So when we come over and we try and get people to think that we're so great, they're doing the same thing. You both walk away and you both try to sell each other something, right? But if your sole job is to leave every conversation with that person feeling better about themselves, imagine what kind of connection, imagine how attractive you're going to be to anybody because you will make them feel like $1 million. Does that make sense? Right? It's put the focus on the other person, and I think you'll navigate, very well. Okay, okay? Yes, please.
Hey, going back to the question I asked you earlier, how do you navigate when you find someone that fits the traits you're looking for, yet not necessarily the traits that your parents or your family are asking you to get?
Yeah. So look, it's like this.
Forget what your parents say.
You guys know each other? Okay, so the question is that something is important and valuable to you and your parents look at it differently. Can we get personal for a second?
Sure.
Great. Are we talking about you here? Yeah? Okay. What is it? Can you share with me, if you're comfortable only, what it is that you feel is invaluable, important to you, and what your parents... Great. Go ahead, please.
3 nuns, they're necessary. She has to be Jewish. There has to be chemistry, and it's not just physical, but mental.
Right.
Ability to have discussion and talk about things. And the third thing that she's goal-oriented.
And this is what you want.
That's like the necessary.
And what is it that your parents feel that is better for you?
Okay, so the Persian over there will understand me. She needs to be Persian.
Uh-huh.
I am half Persian, but they want, at least half Persian or something.
Okay. That's it.
There are more things, but
Okay. Fine. No problem. Right.
I think it's a culture thing, though.
Yeah. No doubt.
It's not like
Right.
they're Xing out people just because.
I understood. So it's like this. If there is somebody specific, right, that you're dating that meets your criteria, but not your parents, I would encourage you to bring in a third party, somebody who your parents respect, and see if this person can help them to see from your perspective. I don't for a second want to dismiss what your parents want because having that cultural sensitivity is beautiful. At the same time, when if their son finds somebody who's a good quality person and of fine character, and they can build a beautiful home together in this crazy world. I can't help but wonder that they, if they were really clear about what's at stake and what the alternative might be if this doesn't work, that they wouldn't, want you to maybe move forward. Again, I can't tell you whether they would or wouldn't, but you selling them is going to be an impossible job. You know that. I would bring in somebody else who is maybe more like-minded with, is thinking like you are, and help them maybe to see from your perspective. That's it. I wouldn't, it'd be reckless for me to tell you, don't listen to them or listen to them. Again, I don't know the situation well enough. If I did, I might. But for now, I would bring in a third party, someone again who sees what it is that is important to you. At the same time, someone who your parents might respect, to see if we can loosen it. Yeah.
So when you say important for me, do you mean something that I need or something that I want?
Well, again, what I said is if it's somebody specific that you're dating, if you're right, and
There's no one specific.
there's no one specific, right?
So this is me just looking around and trying to find someone that will fit at least these three requirements.
Right. So why not put Persian into the mix?
Oh, I have nothing against that.
Okay, fine. I got it. Again, so I hear. So I would say like this, right? I've never found parents ever, good, loving, solid parents, to not want what's best for their child. They're just not always clear what's best for their child. They know what they want because culturally, of course, it's easier and it's a close-knit community. There's amazing things to it. At the same time, if you look at, God forbid, an alternative where you've got a specific girl and it doesn't work, and then you're maybe not finding somebody, your parents will be racked with a lot of guilt and a lot of stuff. And again, I find people to be quite reasonable when you're dealing with a specific case. In theory, it's very hard to go ahead and because there is no girl there. But should the situation come up, again, I would bring in somebody, who might be a good thing. Yes, please, and then go ahead, yeah.
But should you be a people pleaser to your parents? Because like you said, a lot of times they're not in the scene. They don't know what you want. Like you're out of your house. You're getting clear on like what it is. Why are you Jewish? Why it's important? Whatever.
Right.
Like, I guess like how do you deal with that? Like from that perspective, because I think a lot of parents like have visions because like they're back in like 19, like they're not in the
Right.
But they also
So
have more
it-
experience. Maybe they know also.
As I put it like this, it's when it comes to people pleasing and we talk about our parents, it's apples and oranges. We have an obligation to make sure that we optimize our relationship with our parents. If for some reason a person has parents who are emotionally unwell, then you need to bring in somebody, a Rav, somebody who can guide you on whether or not, if they're giving you advice that's not in your own best interest. But they do, as you say, have a wealth of experience. They care about you. They love you, and so on. And we do have an obligation, responsibility to accommodate to whatever is reasonable, what it is that's important to them as well. Okay? Yes, please.
I'm speaking to that because I am part of that community, the Persian
Sure.
community. I've found, for me, open communication, and I think that's within child and
Yeah.
parent, regardless
Yeah,
of what the topic
yeah,
is,
yeah.
should be there.
Yeah.
But open communication is like an important thing.
Sure.
From like when I was 18, I asked my parents if they even care if the guy is Persian. And like my parents, we set kind of like our own little like, as long as he's Jewish and these are the values,
Right.
like we're
Great.
fine.
Yeah. Very
And
nice.
I've kind of like educated, for lack of a better word, kind of what we touched on is like how dating has changed and
Yeah.
we're not in like 19
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And like, these events, like we've kind of touching on everything, like people stay within their cliques.
Yeah.
It looks like this. So for me, I found like just being like laying it all out there.
Yeah.
Like, this is what it looks like right now, and I might come home with a non-Persian guy, is the reality. And so giving that education and having that open communication has been helpful.
That's beautiful. Again, yeah, and as you very nicely say, and that's great. If you can have an open, honest relationship with your parents and can express how you feel and they validate that and it's mutual, but of course, that's the way to go. But we're not always going to be on the same page with our parents. The question is, to what degree, do we need to and should accommodate what it is they want? Because make no mistake, it's also like this. Emotionally, it's very hard to find somebody who is emotionally completely solid, who is estranged from their parents, right? And there's a lot of reasons for that. So it's, even though It may not always be easy. It is incumbent upon us, even selfishly, to optimize that relationship. Okay? Again, we're presuming that that they're acting with a degree of emotional health and integrity. If for some reason there's somebody who's not well, you certainly need to to get better guidance. Yes, please. Yeah.
For a quick follow-up for the boundaries question, so I hear that we don't have to be like very aggressive or mean, but also like with the false promises part, like what is the right way to set a boundary? Because when the person if communicating reasons why it ends up getting the person knowing which false
Good.
promises.
Okay. You're asking a great question. Here's the thing. A person that doesn't respect your boundaries is not going to respect your reasons for your boundaries. Yeah? So there's no answer that is ever going to satisfy them where they're going to go, oh, okay, fine, no problem. Right? It doesn't matter. The only thing that's going to satisfy this person is you saying, okay, fine. And they're going to push until you say, okay, fine. So you need your obligation. The Torah says, by the way, the Gemara says that if you're walking in the desert and you've got a jug of water and there's somebody else there and you only have enough water for one of you to survive, you are fully within your right, maybe even obligation to drink it yourself, right? We have an obligation to protect ourselves physically, emotionally, spiritually, in every which way. You have an obligation. It's not just a nice idea. If somebody is violating your boundaries in any way emotionally, you have an obligation to draw the line, take a step back, and if you can't do it yourself, to bring someone in who can help guide you. But make no mistake, there's no answer you're going to give this person that's going to, you know what it's like? It's like if you park your car in a not nice neighborhood, putting a sign on the windshield that says, please don't steal. Right? Somebody who respects boundaries is not going to take your car. Someone who doesn't is not going to go, oh, let's steal this. Oh, no, look at the note. Right? It doesn't make it. So if they respect it, they're going to. Your reasons are, and by the way, they're going to want to know your reasons because they're master manipulators. They're perfectly logical. They're going to spin you around, end up thinking you're the bad guy in 2 seconds, right? So you need to take a step back. Good? Okay. All right. Questions?
Should we take one more question?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, please.
I don't want to be the last one and take the last one though, so.
Take two.
But no,
You're
really,
so
like,
humble.
We'll take two
well,
more.
so, and this is kind of personal too, that's why I'm like, the thing that's really attracted me most about being more religious in Judaism is like the divorce rate being so low with
Yeah.
religious marriages.
Yeah,
And I've just found, I don't know, how do you like, I think it is different between men and women, the way we think about just consistency, and women I feel like are just genuinely like extremely loyal, and I personally have just struggled with like polyamory and just, so I don't know, that's like my biggest issue, and I'm trying to figure out the Jewish way to solve that, and I don't know if you had any advice about just sustaining.
Yeah. It's a very beautiful, honest question. So I would say really learning about what Judaism says about intimacy, about relationships, about relations. It is completely eye-opening. And as you say, there is a reason why the divorce rate is so low, is in part because of the Judaism is rich with a deeper level of understanding about relationships. And the more you come to understand and know anything, the more attractive it is, assuming that there's an innate beauty there, right? Whatever it is that you learn more about, like you're just more attracted to it because you have more knowledge. As knowledge increases, our ability to what's it? Yeah, to respect it, it magnifies. So I think if you were to spend a little bit of time learning about what Judaism says about intimacy, it would give you an entirely new level of awareness about what a genuine, proper relationship has to offer. And you'll see that in comparison, there's a very good reason why the divorce rate is so low. Okay, the knowledge. For someone like yourself, you're also an intellectual, right? You're somebody who's not going to take something at face value. You want to learn about it, right? So invest in yourself and in your future, learn about it, and then see where it takes you. Is that fair? Sure. Okay.
No.
Did you want to add to the answer?
No, I don't got anything.
Oh, okay, fine. All right, last, and then we'll end with this. And
Okay,
yes.
my final question is, what's one
That's a really good question. The question is going to be better than my answer. You know what? It's a very good question. I don't have an answer that I think is going to be satisfying right now. Certainly, dating is a process. I got married very quickly. As soon as I made a decision to get married, and I dated my wife. We dated for 6 weeks.
Wow.
Got married.
How old are you when you did this? Like age?
Yeah, okay, hold on a second. I'm going to answer all these personal questions. I think first we're going to turn this off. Yeah, and then